this is kind of in place of bringing your plants into the greenhouse. We're trying to help you if you want to overwinter them. There are various techniques you can use. And before I get into all different kinds of plants, the main thing is when I say a cool, dark cellar, it's between 40 and 50 degrees. That's the most important thing. If it's a cellar, if it's a garage and it's dark, it's got to be between 40 and 50 degrees. And that's where you're going to take some of your bigger plants, whether it's your hibiscus or your banana that you want to have come back. A banana is actually an herb, so it's very easy to have it come back. So we're going to start with geraniums because there are 4 different ways you can take your geraniums in. Nobody had geraniums this year, so I picked some of the scented geraniums up from Gilberti's today. They're having a sale. So what you're going to do for the first method, and to me this is magic, this first method, you're going to take your geranium out of the pot, you're going to shake all the dirt off of it. You're going to make sure, this is very important because you want the plant concentrating on roots and not on blooming. So you want to make sure you cut off all the blooms, all the buds, and you just have leaves. So once all the soil is off, you're going to turn it upside down and hang it in a cool, dark place. It's a way you would dry your herbs if you have them. I have a ton of catnip and it's all organic, and I really enjoy my cats having organic catnip. But that's one of the ways in which you're going to be able to save your geranium. But before you put it up there to hang, and before you put any of your plants any place, you want to treat them with neem, because neem is not just an insecticide, it's also going to take care of a fungicide, and it's a mildewcide and everything else. And so that you're protecting your plants so that they don't have to put their energy into fighting off whether it's bugs or whatever. So I'm going to bring this one up because the next way to take care of geraniums, beside hanging them like that, is you can see where there's new growth coming off what's called a node. This geranium has been cut, and this part has been propagated, probably in soil, but I'm not sure, for a new plant. So what we're doing here, when you want to do that, rather than hang them upside down, if you want to have this in your house all winter blooming, you're going to cut it below leaves. That's called a node, where the leaves are. And these are alternate leaves, and you're going to cut it right there. If you look real carefully, you can see where the new leaf is coming out. This part below it is where the root is going to come out. They come out from the same place that the leaves do. It's a growing point on the plant. So you cut these off and either stick them in water or stick them in perlite or vermiculite, something that's a very light mix that you can keep damp. And then they'll be roots, and you can just put them in a pot and grow them on. Another thing you can do, it was really interesting today, the woman took full-size geraniums that were 2 feet high, absolutely gorgeous coral. And she didn't cut much off of them. She only took the dead leaves off, but she got all the soil off the roots, and then she put them in a cardboard box so that the roots were in the middle. So one would come this way and one would come this way, and she was layering them. And you'll check every month to make sure that there's been no fungus or other type of growth that's going to make them die, and it's going to affect the whole box. So you have to check every month and throw out the one that's really bad. And the other thing that you can do, if they look really dry and shriveled, but only if they look really dry and shriveled, take them out of that box, dip the roots in water, shake it off, put them back in again. The other thing you can do is to take your big plant and cut it back so it's a little plant, and then put it in full sun. That, if you have a window where you can do that, and then you'll have it growing all year long. One of the things that you want to look out for is when the new leaves start coming in. When the new leaves start coming in, that's when you start to bring them out into light. And that'll probably happen around February. And you'll want to use maybe a half-strength fertilizer at first until they get used to being fed. And a lot of plants can be done like that, cut down to 2 inches. Your banana can be cut down so it's this big, cool, dark room. Let's see what else. Your butylon, which I'm not going to do that with This is butylon. I'm going to show you how to cut way back. You can do it with a butylon, you can do it with geraniums, you can do it with bananas, you can do it with hibiscus. Or you can take your hibiscus in and just keep it in a warmer room. It's the only plant that I've been talking about that wants to be in a warm room if you want it to bloom in the house. So anyway, just make sure that those things are covered. This geranium is an ivy geranium. These are much more difficult to propagate. You'll want to do cuttings with it, but again, you're going to go through the plant, take out any dead material that could encourage bugs and fungus, and take it all off. Then you're going to cut it, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to cut it. With this one, you could cut it here and take off all of these leaves, because all you want is one leaf at the top. If it has to support all those leaves, it can't grow roots. Here's another one. But again, this is where the roots are going to come out, where my thumbnail is. And that's the part you want in the water or under the soil. And that's one way to propagate the ivy geraniums. They're not as easy to propagate as regular geraniums. They're much more fussy. I like them better, but that's probably because they're fussy. You can see where this one is coming out at a different spot. The rest of the growth has died back. So you would cut these two off if you wanted to keep it in your house in a hanging basket, say, and just put this in the hanging basket. Sorry for that. Here we go. Okay. So where I was when we got rudely interrupted by how badly the bandwidth around this town is, I was explaining about the sweet potato vine, and there are lots of them. They're fantastic. They're drapers, and this one actually will get a pink flower. They're in the same family as morning glory, so you'll get the same kind of morning glory flower. Now, this is really easy to root in a glass of water. If you stick them in the water, if you want them separated, you can use something like, could you hand me that, Karen? Mm-hmm. No, but you can use something like chicken wire, and the chicken wire will give you individual places. Just cut a piece, put it over a glass, it'll keep your stuff apart. But the other way that you can propagate them, and you could actually keep these in the house, because growing, if you have a sunny spot or a bright spot, they don't need a lot of light. But sometimes, I had one this year, they decided it wanted to make a lot of potatoes. So when you dig it out, you cut the top off, and then you dig down through the soil, and you have these. And they get stored the same way as a dahlia tuber would be stored, as caladiums would be stored. What else? What's the tall one with the flowers? Oh, canna, the same way a canna would be stored. So that's that's something that's really nice about the sweet potato vine, and makes it very, very easy to have for next year. Just stick it back in the ground or in your pot, and it will grow out again. So we've gone over plants that can be brought in and cut back and put in someplace cool, 50 degrees. That would be banana, geranium, some salvia, and salvia are very difficult to overwinter. I'm just letting you know in advance. And it was banana and the hibiscus, not the native hibiscus, that just stayed outside. So those can be brought in, cut back, cool dark. We're going to make them go dormant. And that's the most important thing. You want them dormant. You water them too much, and you just want to actually go in once a month and check to see how dry they are. Because if you water them too much, they're going to break dormancy and start growing again. This is dormant. This is not. I can remember when I used to work in wildflowers, we were joking about getting t-shirts that said dormant, not dead, for some of our plants. So now I'm going to come over to this pod, and the Colocosias, alocasia. The alocasias up, alley-oop, and the colocosias, the leaves go down. But I'm taking out a caladium. It looks to be somewhat happy because I've had trouble with caladium in the past where they don't get any bigger. So what you do with the caladium is the same thing you're going to do with your dahlias. And if you want to store your caladium, your colocosias and alocasias, which are both all bulbs, over the winter, rather than have to bring a plant into the house, you're going to do this. You're going to let all that soil dry off the plant, and then you're going to put them in a cardboard box or a brown paper bag and check them every now and then to make sure that they haven't become moldy. Now this alocasia, oh, I'm sorry, and on the caladium, it's important that they come out after the plant has been frosted. Some caladiums will take a little frost like this one, and then they're gone. I have another pot outside where they're still putting out new leaves because it's just more cold hardy. And for those of you who are watching, we are zone 6B, quickly becoming zone 7 as climate change moves into this direction. Many of you may have noticed things blooming at different times. So now I'm digging out this lime color to it, and it's got a new leaf coming out there. But again, you're going to see this is basically, this one doesn't have a huge bulb, but this is basically coming out of bulb. And you're going to let all of this stuff go dormant and then put the bulb in a cool, dark place in a brown paper bag. Now, this is something else that people have outside. This is a form of oxalis. And this particular oxalis is actually a bulb. Now you can take it inside and let it go dormant like this with no special treatment. But if you want to let it go dormant completely, you can cut all of this off, and then you're going to find inside, you know, I don't want to do that. These are some bulbs I'll be planting inside. It's a candy cane oxalis, which is a little different. Of course, you have to wrap them up this good. So that is, okay, these guys actually have roots already. I'm going to come closer to the camera and see if you can see that. That's what you'll find inside the oxalis pot, are those little bulbs. Now you can keep them dormant for as long as you want. We do that at the greenhouse because we don't have a lot of room. So we let them go dormant, and we store the corms by themselves, and then we put them back in. And that way, if you're doing a pot, you could drop 5 or 6 here, 5 or 6 there, and you have the whole pot, and it's potted up, and then all of a sudden, something new pops out of it because it was dormant during that. Now, a lot of people don't know this. These are not annuals. This is an impatiens, but impatiens are not annuals. They are perennials. They just can't live in our cold weather. Now, there's several ways, again, to overwinter this. The deer do a great job at the end of the summer of mowing down most impatiens, and then they pop right back up, and you've got actually more because each place they bit becomes more flowers on each one. That's because it's taking out the terminal bud, but that's not what we're here about. So anyway, this is the stem of the impatient ode. And they're being quiescent. They're not putting any growth out because there's a terminal bud here. And that sends down chemical messages saying, don't grow. When you take that off, that's when you top a tree, you get all the suckers and stuff. So what we're going to do on this, you can bring it in, you can cut it completely down to about 2 inches and let it grow back up from the crown. Or if you want more plants for next year, you're going to cut it off like this, and you want this part underwater. And you probably are going to cut it that down to there so you don't have something that's turning to mush in the water. And this is where these bumps are all where your roots will come out. And there's some that are probably really dormant that you can't see, but you can feel on the surface that it's got a texture to it. So 2 ways to do this: cut it back, and this would probably make 20 plants, or do cuttings from them. Now, one thing I was interested, let me see if I can find it now. Okay, here you go. This is an open seed pod that's already thrown its seeds out. And they're called impatiens because they pop their seeds out. That's the same with the native impatiens, that stuff that you see by streams and stuff. Now, there was another spot here. That's going to be a flower. There was another seed pod, and I'm not seeing it now. And the seed pod still was closed so that you would get seed from that. So you could wait and actually start things from seed.
Maybe you cut it off.
Maybe I cut it off. So this is going to go into a glass of water. This is going to get cut back, and you'll have tons of plants next year. Okay, now on this guy, it had to rain, didn't it? This guy, can you see it, Karen?
Mm-hmm.
This is a butylon. You can see this is not its first year. You can see how thick that one stem is, but it's kind of messy. And this is the time, and again in the spring, I'm looking for my cell code. In the spring, when what you want to do is shape it a little bit. And these, again, stick it in a glass of water. Have 5 or 6 of these outside, plant them in the garden. Then you don't have to worry about what to do in the fall because you've got so many. So I will stick these, although I'll cut a lot of the leaves off because you want the energy going to making roots. And if the leaves are too big, sometimes we do this with geraniums when they have big leaves. You cut it like that. And that way the plant doesn't have to take in as much water without its roots. So it has a better chance, again, to put out roots. So I'm just actually going to take this one down to here because the top is not that nice. There
Wow.
we go.
Yikes.
The whole thing down to this and store it in a cool, dark place. So that's the secret to most of this. And I don't have a cool, dark basement, but I do have this room. So, I can let them continue to grow. I'm going to take this one off because I don't like the leaf color either. So now next year, when this comes back, I will have a lot of growth starting in the spring and a lot of flowers. As a matter of fact, a butylon only flower at the tip, so that by pinching it back, you'll have more flowers because you'll have more tips. Now with the coleus, this is a very leggy coleus. I'm going to cut. You can cut the coleus again down to 6 inches. Keep it in your kitchen, and it will start regrowing from the crown. But if you wanted to do a cutting from this, I want you to see, do you see the flower there? That is what you want to get rid of, everything. You don't want this plant thinking it's going to flower. Because if you do that, that's where the energy is going to go. And I'm actually, this was cut back, and you can see how when you pinch it back, you get 2 growths, two stems, and that makes it better for your, for fullness and everything. It grows better. And then I'm just going to stick that. And if it was a King Kong coleus with the huge leaves, I would cut some of those off. So again, the coleus, cut it down to the bottom. Make as many cuttings as you want. Have as many coleus as you want next year. There's one other thing that I learned while doing this. Karen, can you bring that over here a minute? This is a brugmansia. Now, I can leave it in my house, and it will bloom here in the sun porch and be, okay, not super happy. But if I cut this and I want it to bloom as quickly as possible for next year, where's a good one? You can see where it's a Y shape here. You want to do your cutting below this Y shape, below this Y shape. It has to have two Ys before it will bloom. And then at the end of each tip, you'll get a bloom like this. I'm also working on the Datura, but there's not as much information about that. But I just love these. I mean, they're so great outside. They take full sun, but they need a lot of water. This is a brugmansia, also called angel trumpet, but so is Datura. So it's better to call it a brugmansia so that you know what it is and what you're getting. Now, again, this can be cut down to here and here, about what, 6 inches from the base. And again, cool, dark place. And then bring it out in the spring, half fertilizer, half of what you normally use, and it will start growing again.
Jerry, did you say you could do that with the coleus too? Or
Yeah.
can you only do it by root?
The coleus, I cut back to there, that will come back.
And you don't put any water in it until the spring. You just put it in a cool.
No, you need to let it, you need to wait until there's growth. Because what happens, it may shoot growth next week, but the soil might still be damp. You don't want the soil too damp because then the roots can't breathe. They actually, that joke I made about turning the geranium upside down and letting it breathe, letting its root breathe. Plants need oxygen and they take it in through their roots. So when you put something into a pot that's too big for it, there's too much water, the plant can't use the water and it's going to rot. So on something like this, where it has a lot of roots in it, because it's been like this all year, you're going to let it absorb some of that water on the coleus before you start watering it again. So you want to see some growth and you want to see really dry soil. On the other things, on the geranium, on the brugmansia, on the hibiscus, on the, what else? The salvia, and even on the fuchsia, you're going to just water once a month. You just want to water it enough to keep it alive. You don't want to start any growth and you don't want any water sitting in that pot. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Me, Doris?
Sure.
Yes, Doris.
Okay, so I've had a hibiscus. I have two magnificent ones that I've enjoyed very, very much. One I'd pulled through last winter. Here, I forgot what plant it was in my kitchen. It was green and shiny and dark leaves. And then it told me that it was a hibiscus. And then I bought another one. Because I've once had a hibiscus that gave me flowers 3 winters in a row, right here in my very sunny kitchen. I was surprised when you said, you know, that they need to go dormant.
They don't need to go dormant. If you have a spot that's going to stay above 68 degrees and it's in the sun,
Yeah,
you don't have to make it go dormant. I'm just suggesting this for somebody who doesn't have that kind of situation where they can watch
Yeah.
it grow. You know, I can watch all my stuff grow out here.
yes,
So I just bring them in. I don't necessarily, well, I will on some of them. I'll cut them back
Sure.
because it'll give me more growth next year. Remember, the root is the powerhouse of the plant.
yes,
So as long as you're tending to that root, corm, rhizome,
right.
ground, whatever, that's the powerhouse that's going to create the new plant.
Sure.
And it's going to grow just the flower. And then down the road, after it blooms, it's going to put out its leaves. We're forcing it into a behavior that's not programmed for. So sometimes the
What?
reason that you don't dig canna up, the reason you don't dig caladium up until after the first freeze or 2, actually with dahlias, it's 2 freezes. That's to the tuber to go dormant. So
Right.
let it grow, and when you're going to have a hard frost, put it outside. It will be told it should be dormant, and try planting it next spring.
I knew you knew the answer. I didn't know that.
I don't know. I have not necessarily the answer.
I won't come and holler outside your greenhouse, but I used to put, I had the most magnificent dahlias for about 30 years until this year, okay? So I never knew the part about 2 frosts. That's interesting. I always just went out there after the first.
Jerry, this
Thank
is
you.
Sharon. You know, I have a lot of caladiums. I store them in egg cartons, like each one where you put the eggs. And I don't put them in the basement in a cool place. I keep them where it's above 60 degrees, like under my couch or in the laundry room. And they do quite well that way. And I actually take them out before a hard frost.
Out of
And
the
but then
ground.
let them dry and, you know, and clean them up.
Yeah.
But I have a few hundred, so that works for me.
Well, I'm glad, you know, because as I said, I've always had trouble before this one. I don't know where it went, but this bulb actually got bigger, which haven't
Yeah,
had
they
happen
shouldn't get
before.
bigger.
Usually
They supposedly get smaller every year.
So this one was good.
Jerry, I have a question. I have a question about ferns that I have that I'd like to overwinter.
Okay. What do you know? Are they the ones that Gladys does?
No.
Are they like a maidenhair from the greenhouse?
No, they're not maidenhair. They're basically, I mean, I got it at I think they're called male ferns. They're just a nice fern that I've got in pots, and wondering if I can cut them back and keep them in the garage for the winter.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem at all. I mean, male ferns are hardy here. What I'll go into in my next presentation, though, is that think about the butterfly bush. You don't prune your butterfly bush until the spring. Let the frost kill whatever it's going to kill. And sometimes it'll kill the butterfly bush to the ground, but the butterfly bush comes back because the top of the butterfly bush is zone 6 and the roots are zone 5. Now, on a male fern, I don't know if the roots are zone 5, but if you put it in the garage, that should be enough protection so that the roots don't freeze.
And then not water it and let it dry?
Yeah. Well, you check it every month and maybe water it a little bit each month, but not a ton because it's not going to be growing actively, so it's not going to need all that moisture.
Should I cut it back at all?
Yeah, I would cut it back because you don't want it the roots trying to support green fronds above the soil line when it's trying to go dormant. I mean, like a Christmas fern, maybe you wouldn't cut back because they stay green all year long or close to it. So they're used to that. But with a male fern that actually dies back completely, I would cut it back so it doesn't have to do that work.
Question about New Guinea impatiens. Now you mentioned that you just can cut that back and keep it in the pot.
Right.
I have a beautiful hanging New Guinea. Now I would just cut it all back before frost, and then best place to keep it in the cool, dry place or in the sun?
Impatiens, I would bring in the house and let grow.
Okay.
You know, I was trying to find out.
I have a nice sunny window in the basement. Yep.
Stuff was.
Okay.
But, yeah, you know, with impatiens, I definitely would just make more through cuttings.
Okay.
That's easy, and then you have a fresh plant, not one that's grown before and may have used up some of its resources. You know, really, I'm trying to think. Parsley really doesn't have a stem. It's almost like a monocot. And so I don't think you could root the parsley. And again, I don't know how and when the parsley decides it's going to turn bitter. I saw that today, Gilberries. I haven't grown it myself, so I really don't know about the stevia. I think that actually becomes a woody shrub, doesn't it? Or close to it?
I'll let you know. I don't know.
It's
It's my first year. It's my first year.
So, let me know what happens.
Yeah, but
But I
Bobby,
would try bringing it in.
but the sage in time, Bobby, that'll just be a perennial. You don't have to do anything, at least for mine.
Good.
They just come right back, and be careful you don't cut the sage way back. You know, usually what happens, it's like lavender. You don't want to cut it back. You just let it look ugly because it starts to get the new leaves off of the old stem area. Because I've had people cut back mine and then it's pretty much dead or it takes forever. So you don't have to do too much to it, and mine always comes back for my sage and my thyme.
Well, on the sage, if you can do something to make the above ground conditions a little bit warmer. I mean, some years I've had tricolor sage that was 3 feet across, and then you get a bad winter and it's gone. So if
Yeah.
you have something like that, you want to do something to protect it from the cold. And I don't know exactly what that is, whether it's a cloche or what.
Usually I just put leaves on mine
Mm-hmm.
because I just keep my leaves in my beds and then I clean them out later. So I don't know if that's the right thing, but they seem to make it.
Well, the other thing about salvia that will kill it is if you cut it back too close, the stems are hollow like a mint stem. So they get water in them, and that gets down to the root and rots them out. That I learned today in my research. So yes, you don't want to cut salvia, just the flowers.
Oh,
You're opening that hollow stem. On the other hand, Linda Schmidt and I were on our hands and knees pulling ladybugs out of the hollow stems after we bought them and they escaped from the greenhouse. So hollow stems do provide home for some insects, but not if you want to keep the plant. About that, I'm having enough trouble because it turns out that New England rabbits are a different breed or genus than Eastern rabbits. And the New England rabbits are endangered and the other ones aren't. And it has something to do with a spot on the forehead. And I'm not getting up to any rabbits to measure their ears and see who has longer ears. But you know, it's really it's just more and more interesting the deeper I go into these subjects, and I bore everybody to death with it.
Yeah, that's news to me. I'm gonna look that up. Thank you.
Hi, Jerry. I was wondering, the begonia I sent you a picture of, I did pull it out and there's no bulbous stuff. It just looks like roots. Can I save that or?
Yeah, you can bring it in the house and let it grow the whole time through the winter.
Okay, so I have to keep it somewhere sunny and warm enough where
Well,
it
it
can
doesn't
grow?
have to be sunny. I mean, begonias don't have to have full sun.
Okay,
So don't put it in, if you have a west window with really direct sun, it's gonna burn the begonia, that particular type. So you could use an east window, a southeast window, but not a west window.
okay, but it doesn't have to be really warm? My sunroom's not that warm. It's probably only in the low 60s. Is that gonna be okay for it or?
Yeah, that should be okay.
Okay, all right.
Plants like it cooler.
They're beautiful. Yeah, they're so pretty. I'd like to save them. So, thank you.
You're welcome. And I forgot to say that cane begonias, like the angel wings, I left them out. And a cane begonia can just be stuck into a glass of water. The stem puts out its own rooting hormones. So you can just cut the stems on the angel wings and stick them in water and they should root. They should root pretty easily.
Oh, nice.
And then the rhizomatous are the ones that we had fun at the greenhouse with 2 years ago, because you just cut the leaf and you stick it on the prop bench, and then you get these miniature, absolutely miniature little plants forming at the base of the leaf. It's just amazing the way they reproduce.
Nice.
Jerry, we had some awesome marigolds from the annual this year. Big, huge ones. Everybody's raving about them. How do you save those seeds?
They're right on my photo, actually, from
Yeah.
trackside.
Okay, here's the thing. They're not gonna be the same marigolds necessarily.
Oh,
There's more than one marigold. They could be cross-pollinated and the seeds are not going to produce the same thing. And it depends on if it's really early. I think it's like if it's an F1 or an F2 hybrid, it can revert to one of the parents in the seeds. So you won't always get the same thing. With marigolds, it's actually better just to buy what you want again. Find out what that marigold is and get the same seed, because otherwise, like some people on one of the sites said, I have 2 different tomatoes growing next to each other and they're pollinating each other. What's the fruit going to turn out to be? And it's not the fruit. It's not going to affect the fruit, but the seeds inside that tomato are going to have characteristics of both of the plants that were growing next to each other, if indeed they were cross-pollinated.
that's so
There's so much to learn and so much
Yeah.
that's
So
interesting.
They're
much
just good
to
to plant
learn.
out in anywhere you want to just put a bunch of flowers out in the backyard where you don't care where the rabbits eat it, right? If anybody wants them, we have a lot. What do you say?
Terry, what was it you said you used for mildew?
For
Hydrogen
the-
peroxide,
Oh, hydrogen peroxide.
amazing.
Great, you don't mix it with anything.
And then another, but, okay, this is off topic, but, pertains to that. In the springtime, if you get some stickum from the store, a nursery or maybe even online, and mix that with 3/4 of a cup of water and 1/4 of a cup of milk, the pH of the milk, when you spray it on your peonies, when the mildew or black spot or whatever, the botrytis splashes up, it's not a conducive environment for it to grow. And you're using the stickum, so you don't have to do it every time that it rains. So you do it maybe once a week in the beginning, because that's where the botrytis is coming from. It's coming from the rain and then it splashes up onto the plants. So change the pH of the plant and you change the living environment for the microorganisms that are living on it.
What is this, Nixum? Nixum?
Stick them. Stick them up. It's
Stick 'em?
called stickum. STICKUM, something like that.
Stickum? And what it is exactly,
It just keeps it, the solution waterproof, more waterproof, so it doesn't wash off so easily. This is the season because of kind of weather we're having.
Yeah.
I had to open the door to the other part of my conservatory because it's too closed in, and there's, with the plants transpiring, there's too much moisture in there. That's why you use a fan in a greenhouse, is to move the air around. When you have a plant, like say this leaf, what it has on the bottom are little openings, and this is where the moisture comes out.
Yeah.
Because it's breathing. If it's really, really still, that moisture is going to sit there and the air is going to be saturated and no other moisture can leave the plants. That's disrupting the plant's life cycle. So that's why you have a fan. And when you have a still day like this, for the last couple of days where it's just, you feel like it's 110% humidity, or even in the summer when it's 110% humidity, that's when you're going to get the conditions that make these
fungus, mildew, fungus?
mildew, botrytis, whatever. It makes them more aggressive.
Interesting. I didn't realize, like in our tomatoes, I've seen it, but I've never seen it just on the very new growth. And not the rest of the leaves. Was odd. But
I don't know what else it could be unless a bird flew over. And
I have a lavender, Spanish lavender plant, which somehow didn't get put in the ground. I bought it last spring. And I was wondering, should I take it inside? Should I plant it now? It's too late, it's the roots, whatever. What do you think?
well, I don't know specific lavenders. There are only 2 or 3 lavenders that are actually hardy in this area.
Yes, I've always lost them. That's why I was hesitating.
So I can't really answer whether that specific lavender is going to be hardy or not.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that one usually is, and I think it's really hard to keep lavender growing in the house. I haven't had luck. Usually I only have luck with the Heidcote, Munstead, and the Provence. Those are the 3 that survive over winter,
Yeah.
in the garden. But they also, like Jerry said, they need really well-drained soil. They don't want to have wet feet. They need full sun. So they're pretty particular. And you have to be careful how you prune them. You don't want to cut them way down to the bottom, or then they're gone, basically,
Because of the hollow stem? Because of the hollow stem again?
I'm not really sure why, but what I've found is if you cut them back too much, they don't do well. But
Okay.
the Spanish, I've never had any luck keeping that over winter,
Thank-
and I don't have.
Okay, ladies. Well,
Thanks,
thank
Jerry.
you so much.
thanks, Jerry.
It's
Thank
been
you.
wonderful.
time.
And
Thank you very,
Kara.
very-
Thanks for setting it up.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Janer. Yeah, thanks, you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Good to
Bye-bye.
see everyone. Thank you.
Bye. Your questions.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
Jerry. It was great.
Yeah, it's really
Wonderful.
nice. Thanks.
Bye-bye.